Somewhere deep in the Appalachian Mountains, there lives an old man named Hank. He hasn't paid an electric bill in 47 years, not because he's off the grid, not because he has solar panels, and definitely not because the government approved what he's doing. In fact, 3 years ago, a utility company lawyer showed up at his door. They told him to stop. He laughed and closed the door. Because what old Hank knows costs $3 at any hardware store, and it works so well that if every American knew this trick, 3 of the biggest utility companies in the United States would collapse overnight. This is the story of old Hank's $3 wire trick, and why they've been trying to bury it for over 100 years. To understand the trick, you have to understand the man. Hank wasn't always the quiet hermit people in town whispered about. Back in 1971, Hank was a young electrician in rural Kentucky, fresh out of trade school, working for the county electric cooperative. He was good at his job, maybe too good, because one afternoon in September, while rewiring an old farmhouse outside of Harlan County, he found something hidden inside the walls. Behind layers of old plaster and horsehair insulation was a hand-drawn diagram, yellowed with age. Edges burned like someone had tried to destroy it, but failed. Hank almost threw it away. But something made him stop. He unfolded it carefully, and what he saw made his hands shake. It was a wiring diagram, but not like anything he'd ever seen in trade school. Whoever drew this knew something about electricity that modern engineers either forgot or were told to forget. Hank stuffed the diagram in his pocket, drove home, and didn't sleep for 3 days. He showed the diagram to his supervisor the next morning. His supervisor looked at it for a long time. Then he folded it up, handed it back to Hank, and said these exact words. "Boy, put that away, and don't show it to anyone else." Hank asked why. His supervisor just shook his head and walked away. That was the last day Hank ever worked for the electric company. He quit that afternoon, went home, and spent the next 6 months testing that diagram in his own basement. What happened next changed his entire life. Now, before I tell you exactly what Hank found, I need to give you a little background, because this isn't just some backwoods trick. There's real science behind it. Science that the utility companies understand very well. In fact, they're counting on you not understanding it. See? Most people think electricity works like water in a pipe. You use it. You pay for it. Simple. But that's not the whole story. What the electric companies don't advertise is something called phantom load, or as electricians call it, vampire power. Right now, in your home, every single outlet, every single switch, every single appliance, even when turned off, is silently, constantly pulling electricity. The average American home loses between 20% to 40% of all electricity it pays for to phantom load alone. That means if your electric bill is $200 a month, between $40 and $80 is being stolen from you every single month. That's nearly $1,000 a year gone. And the utility companies know this. They've always known this, because phantom load means more usage. More usage means more billing. More billing means more profit. So they have absolutely zero incentive to ever tell you about it. But old Hank's diagram had a solution. A simple, elegant, $3 solution. The diagram showed a specific way of wiring a simple device between your main electrical panel and your home's circuit system. Not complicated, not illegal, at least not back then, just clever, using a basic electrical principle that every first-year engineering student learns, but somehow never applies at home. The device itself? A simple ferrite core wire, available at any hardware store for about $3 when wired correctly. Using the exact configuration in Hank's diagram, it creates what electricians call a reactive loop. A reactive loop, essentially, bounces unused electrical current back through your system before the meter registers it. In plain English, the electricity your appliances waste never reaches the utility company's meter. You use the same power. Your lights work the same, your appliances run the same, but your meter slows down dramatically. Hank tested it in his basement for 3 months. His electric bill dropped 60% in the first month, 80% by the third month. By month 6, his meter was barely moving. He paid $4.17 for electricity that month. $4.17. Now you might be thinking, if this works so well, why hasn't anyone talked about it? That's exactly the right question. And the answer is a story that goes back further than old Hank, back to 1924. A small electrical engineer in Ohio named Walter Grimes filed a patent number 1,487,233, for a device he called the reactive current stabilizer. The patent was approved, published in the Federal Registry, available to the public, for exactly 11 days. On the 12th day, 3 representatives from a major utility consortium met with the U.S. Patent Office. Behind closed doors, no public record of what was discussed. But the next morning, patent 1,487,233 was quietly classified, pulled from public records. Walter Grimes was visited at his home that evening. His neighbors said they saw 2 black cars parked outside. Walter was never heard from publicly again. His patent didn't resurface until 1987, when AFOIA request by a small engineering journal finally forced its declassification. The journal published one article about it. Their office burned down 3 weeks later. Electrical fire. Investigators called it accidental. The editor called it something else entirely. Now, I'm not saying there's a grand conspiracy. I'm just telling you the documented facts. The patent existed. It was classified. The engineer disappeared from public life, and the technology was buried for over 60 years. Old Hank didn't know any of this in 1971. He just knew his diagram worked. It wasn't until 1989, when a retired utility company engineer knocked on his door, that Hank finally understood what he'd been sitting on for nearly 2 decades. The old engineer's name was Carl. He'd worked for a major utility company for 31 years, and he was dying of cancer. He said he found Hank's name in some old internal documents that utility companies kept, on people they considered problems. Carl sat on Hank's porch for 4 hours that day and told him everything about the phantom load scheme, about Walter Grimes, about the classified patent, about the quiet campaign to discredit anyone who figured out the reactive loop trick. Before Carl left, he handed Hank a folder. Inside were photocopies of internal memos from 1924, from 1971, and from 1987, all discussing the same thing: how to keep this $3 trick from reaching the American public. So what exactly is the trick? Here's what old Hank has been doing for the past 47 years. Step 1. Go to any hardware store. Ask for a ferrite core suppressor. They're usually in the electronics section. Cost? Between $2 and $4. Step 2. Locate the main wire running from your electrical panel to your first circuit breaker. This is usually a thick black wire. Step 3. Using electrical tape, wrap the ferrite core around this wire exactly 7 times. Not 6. Not 8. 7. This creates the reactive loop configuration. From the original 1924 patent, Step 4. Ground the ferrite core using a simple 14-gauge copper wire connected to your panel's grounding bar. That's it. 4 steps. $3. And according to old Hank, your meter starts slowing down, within 24 hours. Now, is this legal? In most states, yes. You're not tampering with the meter. You're not stealing electricity. You're simply optimizing your own internal wiring. But in 7 states, utility companies have quietly lobbied for laws that make reactive loop devices technically illegal to install without a permit. Those states: California, New York, Texas, Florida, Illinois, Georgia, and Washington. Interesting that the states with the highest utility company profits are exactly the states where this is restricted. Almost like someone didn't want their customers to know. Old Hank is 79 years old now. He still lives in that same farmhouse in Kentucky. He still hasn't paid a meaningful electric bill since 1971, when I asked him if he was worried about telling people this story. He just smiled, picked up his coffee cup, and said, "Son, I'm 79 years old. What exactly are they going to do to me?" And then he laughed, that slow, quiet laugh. Of a man who has absolutely nothing left to fear, Old Hank's vault has many more secrets. Next week, he's going to tell us about the water trick, the one the EPA tried to bury in 1993, the one that gives you completely pure water for the rest of your life for $2. You're not going to want to miss that one. Until then, keep digging, because the truth is always buried shallow.